Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Jeff Mount on the line, and he's the president over at Real Intelligence, LLC. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at Real Intelligence and how you're helping your clients. But before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how'd you get started in your career and in business?
So I was what they call a wholesaler in the financial services business for the last 25 years, working with independent financial advisors, bank advisors, major wirehouses, Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney, now Morgan Stanley, et cetera. And, working under, selling different types of programs, most recently what they call a asset management program. And got to know these people not just from an investment perspective, but also from a practice management perspective. So that really gave me kind of my foothold and my background into what makes these guys tick, where their challenges are, where their opportunities lie. And my job, of course, was to try to help them get there.
That's awesome. And so I love your background because then we're going to get more into what you're doing at Real Intelligence. But coming from the wholesale side, you do have a unique vantage point, having worked with many of the people that, are client-facing, obviously giving advice and solution recommendations to their clients. So that being said, we don't talk too much about the wholesale side on the podcast. I've had quite a few financial advisors on here, but there's some younger, just getting started people that are thinking about a career in finance overall. So maybe they're just graduating college and they thought about the financial advisor route, but maybe they haven't really looked at the wholesale side or what that even means. What kind of advice would you give to that newbie that's out there thinking about going to finance and is considering wholesale as a potential career path?
So the wholesaling gig has changed quite a bit. It's easy to get into if you're coming right out of college, and finding an internal wholesaling job shouldn't be a challenge at all. They now have what they call hybrids. I was always an external wholesaler, and that method of wholesaling is quickly becoming extinct. So it's an expensive, from a distribution cost perspective to a company. External wholesaling is expensive. So the idea of having mostly internals and hybrids, it's a great way to get into a good company that distributes a good product. But I think the career path has changed from what it was when I was a wholesaler.
Got it. Let's switch it up a bit, Jeff. I do want to get into what you're doing over at Real Intelligence. So first, tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
So the company just went live January 1st of this year. We've been working on this for quite some time. My partner, who used to be a client of mine, who's coming out of retirement for this, reached out to me middle of last year and went through one of my training programs probably 12, 13 years ago. And he was inspired through what we call a 90-day challenge to write a book. Well, he never published the book. So he asked me for help with this. Since he is in retirement and just doesn't really have the energy, so to speak, to really put into this. And I took a look at the book and realized very quickly it wasn't really aimed at the general public, even though he thought it might be. It was really kind of a how-to for advisors on how to build trust with investors faster, how to get investors to have strategic conversations with them about their finances very, very quickly, very easily. And quite frankly, it's a different financial planning methodology. So if I'm looking at this, I started thinking, well, why don't we marry the training program that inspired him to write this with this book, which really could become a training program as well. So Real Intelligence is effectively trying to, and our tagline is, we help financial advisors overcome the competitive challenges of artificial intelligence, thus the play on words with the name Real Intelligence. What we're trying to do here is to help advisors to move their average account size up to a higher level. A lot of advisors still have a lot of smaller clients. The challenge with the smaller clients is as robo-advisors become better, and they're kind of clunky right now, but artificial intelligence will make them better. As they become better, the smaller investor is going to migrate away from a human advisor and seek out the what feels like the same experience from a robo-advisor. It's not the same, but to them it may look the same. Clearly, people who have significant wealth are more interested in a human managing the downside risk rather than just having broad exposure to the market with no downside risk management. So our job is to help them with that, and we believe that the training program we created can help them actually accomplish this.
That's awesome. So what is, let's go a little bit further. So you mentioned the book also. Is the book also out now, or did it all evolve into the training program, just to make sure I follow?
There will be a book. It has changed. There will be a book that will be published, call it mid-February. At the same time, we will be launching an app for the general public called Dynamic Map, which is really a very fancy calculator that is in line with the Dynamic Mapping Financial Planning module, which is all part of this. So we're actually going to have two identities. We're going to have Real Intelligence, which is how advisors will know us. And then we'll have Dynamic Map, which is how the general public will know us. So when you think about financial planning software that most advisors use, they generally have to pay a subscription for it, $300 to $400 a month. And that subscription creates a financial planning input-output type of software, and the output comes out in a spreadsheet type format. So if I'm looking at a spreadsheet type format, I can follow the money, but if I'm an investor, how likely is it I'm going to be able to wrap my head around it from a strategic perspective? Often they can't. They just look at the advisor and say, okay, what do I do? Well, that puts a whole lot of fiduciary liability and burden, quite frankly, on the advisor to be able to successfully read the mind of the investor. We don't want that. We want the investor to understand it as well as the advisor. So what we've done with this output is instead of spreadsheeting it, we're going to be graphing it. The dynamic map will effectively graph out your assets to your liabilities. We do count retirement as a liability. I know it's kind of a weird thought, but we do believe that everyone has to pay for their retirement at some point. When you decide to retire is up to you, but at some point you won't be employable. So by graphing it out, you actually start to paint a picture. And the picture that we're going to see on the app is that of a sailboat. If your sailboat is strong and has big billowing sails, that means you're doing a great job of saving towards your retirement. If your sailboat has a large hull and very little sail, that means you need to do a lot to catch up and actually fulfill the savings objectives towards each of your purposes. And I use retirement as an example. We can do this for any purpose, whether it's college tuition savings, whether it's saving for your daughter's wedding, save to capitalize a small business at some point in the future. All of these things can be executed on this app, and we'll give you some idea as to how you're doing. In fact, the conclusion of the app, and this will be a free download available to everybody, is effectively building out the sails, building out the boat for all purposes, and then kind of combining it and trying to identify what your probability of success will be. And there will be 4 outcomes. The first outcome is you have this big, beautiful sailboat that does get to shore. You walk off your boat, you'll see fireworks in the sky. You'll hand the keys to your boat to your adult children, which means you have successfully financed your family's obligations, and you have a legacy for your adult children. Good job. The second outcome, you get to port, fireworks off, you walk off the boat. You have successfully financed your family's obligations, but there's not much left there for a legacy, but still very good job. The third outcome is you're in the water with a slack sail. You can see the port on the other side of the water, but you're just drifting. You don't know how you're going to get there, which means you're hoping for better than average investment performance to actually help bail you out of the situation you're in. And outcome number 4 is you have this giant hull, you have no sail, and you hit what is known as the risk vortex, which is a whirlpool, and you could spin around, you could go down. As you can imagine, each of these outcomes are going to elicit some visceral responses. People get emotional about this, but the good news is they will understand it. And when you understand it, you can begin to talk strategically. Should I wait 5 more years before I retire? Should I adjust my expectations of what kind of income I should take in retirement and how would that impact the plan. This app will make it very easy to adjust how your boat looks based on what kind of changes you can make strategically.
That's awesome, and I see the graphical representation as being something that's super beneficial. I get it, and I see it, and I can see when people, the visual learners in us that learn that way. I think it's a very novel idea, but also I think it's going to be very helpful to having people understand whatever the goal is. As you mentioned, it could be graph for retirement, it could be graph for other goals. That being said, so I'm sure you've done quite a bit of work behind putting this. It's no small undertaking. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the people that you've kind of tested it by or beta tested through? I'm just curious.
It's been outstanding, both from the general public and from advisors themselves. First of all, they can't believe that they're going to have access to software for free. And that goes for both the investors and the advisors, because as I mentioned, advisors have these high subscription costs, quite frankly, for financial planning software that doesn't necessarily meet the expectations of the investors. So they're excited about that. They're excited about some of the changes that we're making in the basic financial planning. So very simple things like risk profile questionnaires or rebalancing on an annual basis. Those are ideas that we effectively throw out. And then we favor concepts like aging a portfolio instead. What I mean by that is simply this. If rather than having one pool of money for all purposes, which is kind of a head scratcher because each purpose is going to have a different timeline. If I have 3 children who are different ages, they're all going to be in college different times. So I need to age each of those portfolios, kind of like target date, but a little bit more aggressive than that, where if I have a long period of time before I need the money, I can be pretty aggressive with my risk. But as I get closer, each and every year, I'm gradually migrating towards a safer place so that, God forbid, it's 2007 and my kids are going to school in 2008 and the market tanks. It's okay. I'm in very safe investments like treasuries and cash and CDs, et cetera. The same would be true for retirement. Retirement, we have to manage the income differently in distribution phase than we do in the accumulation phase. We can't just withdraw specific percentages from equities to get our income. We actually have to generate income, as well as, of course, manage things like inflation and bear market, et cetera, which we would do with reserves. So these are all basic elements, teaching elements in our training program through dynamic mapping that will help investors to better understand how we're going to manage the risk and how we're going to help them accomplish their goals. At the end of the app experience, we are going to ask both the advisor and the investor, whoever's using this, which you are. Are you an advisor or are you an investor? If you're an advisor, would you like to learn more about dynamic mapping and become a DM certified advisor? If you're an investor, did you get a lot out of this? Would you like to meet an exceptional financial advisor, a DM certified advisor, who can deliver to you an experience that's generally reserved for investors who have $50 million or more? We call that the essential family office, which will allow us to preserve your wealth in multiple ways, restore your time so you can focus on those things that are important to you, and do this in a really private, discreet manner. I found that most investors who've heard this entire story can't wait to meet DM certified advisors.
That's awesome. I get it, and it makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited when the book comes out and all these things go live in February or March. You're going to have to ping me back, and we'll get you back on the show so we can get you some books moved, too. Love to help authors sell books. One of the things I like doing best. That being said, Jeff, if somebody's listening to this now and they want more information on Real Intelligence, what's the best way for them to reach out and get that info?
The best way to reach us at the moment is through the website, which is www.realintelligence360.com.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Jeff, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great work you're doing over at Real Intelligence to help your clients and advisors out there. And to the audience, as always, thanks for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And Jeff, thanks again for coming on the show.